For centuries, man has been fascinated by the great oceans of the world, their sheer power, their abundance of life, and their ability to unite distant civilizations.
Today, I'm going to introduce a young man who has an incredible knowledge of the sea and experience in ocean navigation, and who is with good speed into the world of science.
My project, I want to prove the navigation, the first navigation navigator is with the reed boat, but in the time, modern time, is for me is more important in my project. The reed boat, I want to sail in with the indigenous people for the symbolic navigation for these people, like these people stand and know many good the nature life, and I think it's very good for the open the eyes the people from the city to stand this.
Kitín Muñoz is the latest explorer to examine primitive man's navigational capabilities and the result of their transoceanic voyages. He is about to embark on a 3-year journey around the world aboard his reed boat, the Matarangi. Joining him will be members of several indigenous tribes. Kitin hopes to demonstrate that prehistoric man was capable of oceanic travel. He says, how else can we explain the common plants, practices, and cultures that we have found in civilizations that were separated by sea?
Civilization started when man had boats big enough, good enough to travel to foreign countries, to find new raw material, to get new inspiration. And this is very easy to understand. In some of these countries with early navigation, you don't find timber, but you find an abundance of reed. You don't need a complicated tool to cut reeds. You can cut as many as time permits, and you can tie them together as big as you want. But you have to have experience and good tools before you can build ships. And all the early civilizations we know, from Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, from Egypt, the pre-pharaonic period, what do they depict in their art? Not a single temple, but boats. They depict raid boats.
Mostly archaeologists and anthropologists, mostly have been academicians, and they always looked at the oceans as being a kind of a hindrance to migration. You know, unless it had a land bridge, they looked at it as not being possible. Well, it's more, as an oceanographer, I can tell you that crossing the ocean is a lot easier than crossing a landmass. I mean, look at the pioneers that crossed America. How many of them, you know, perished? Had to cross mountains, going through all the weather, and then having to worry about starvation. Where the oceans, we have rivers in the sea, currents, and all they have to do is just drift. They must have known about this. So it's easier to cross the ocean than to cross a continent.
We have learned that this is a fantastic vessel, but Kitin's philosophy is that as long as you build a small reed boat, modern people will think, that's just a raft. You have to build a big one, like the ship of Columbus, and then they will start to understand. That is what Kitin is going to do. And I am sure that we are all going to open our eyes for what a reed ship like those with 3 masts, which was built on early Easter Island, and with brought civilization to that island with a technology that could raise single stone statues as tall as 3, 4, 5-floor buildings. These early people, with the means they had great brains, great civilizations.
I mean, it is here on this little island, which is 15 miles long, 5 miles wide. It once populated by a population of maybe 15,000 people, which may have started with a group of people that came on a double raft, maybe 40 or 50, and then eventually multiplied. And they developed a high sense of, well, they developed the writing, they developed an art form, a very unique art form, and they consumed the entire resources of the environment, and then they finally cannibalized. So you have a microcosm of what we are perhaps doing today in the entire planet. We are consuming our resources, population seems to be uncontrollable, and we could go the same way. So I think Easter Island is a microcosm, and we can see what happened in a very small area and during a very short period of time, perhaps from the year 900 to about the year 14 or 1500, which is about the time that the civilization reached its cultural epogee and then started to decline.
I am born in Africa, in the desert. I think it's very important for the little boy, the country or the place of is born. And the boy I see every day, the camel and the desert and the sea and the people from the Africa, from the Sahara. I think this is my beginning, the explorer.
Well, the Explorers Club is an international organization. It was started in 1904, and its flag has been on every high peak in the world. It's been on the ocean floor, the deepest part, and it's also been on the moon. So carrying the Explorers flag is a true honor. And, you know, I think that the, of course, it is based in New York, but it is an international club. And, but it was started here in the United States. And carrying the Explorers flag, all the astronauts, many of the astronauts, as well as the cosmonauts, have carried the Explorers flag.
For me, the time is important because it's the project for my, is one project important in my life.
I think the Matarangi will be carrying the same flag as Heyerdahl carried on the Kon-Tiki. Also the Ra 1, Ra 2, and the Tigris expedition.
The very big difference in this new expedition, for example, the Kon-Tiki or the Ra and other expedition, is I want making important the people, indigenous people, because these people is the first explorer in the world before Christophe Colomb. But in a modern expedition, every time, only the European people and American, Occidental people is the people in this expedition.
When Thor Heyerdahl crossed on the Kon-Tiki raft, they considered him a good sailor, but not a true explorer or archaeologist. But now they're more, the whole picture of the fact that people could navigate and never had the ability to do this, and the archaeological evidence goes further back in time, that these people, you know, not only maybe 15,000 years ago when the glaciers were here and the sea level was lower, they had the natural land bridge. But now we find that people lived in the Americas maybe 35,000 years ago, before the glacial periods. So there's a lot to learn, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of future studies.
And it's a great pleasure for me now to introduce to you a great friend, Kitín Muñoz, and to present to him a flag which I carried on the Kon-Tiki across the Pacific, and later also on my first expedition to Easter Island, which we will hear more about later. And Kitin, take this as a torch and as a symbol of friendship and good luck. Good to see you.
I see young people learning what it is to experience an adventure. I think young people, we're all born with this adventurous experience, but in growing up, it's bred out of us. Few people are fortunate enough to hold on to it enough to be able to continue it. And that's why I think Kitin and all the other explorers must have had it.